Next up, we have a message from our founding fathers. Yeah, I gotta say something. I thought it was a fad when people started saying we need to reconnect with the Constitution. We need to remind ourselves what the founding fathers stood for. You know, they were a bunch of troublemakers, by the way. A bunch of malcontents. But look at the country they created. It is still the greatest country on the planet. It is still the single greatest engine for economic activity this world has ever known. And it all started a long, long time ago. I want to welcome to the podium John Putnam, organizer of this event, the Southwest Missouri Conservative Network organizer and state director for the Missouri Fair Tax. Ladies and gentlemen, John Putnam.
Thank you very much, Mark. I came today in my colonial costume that my wife made for me. I have a long history and a long affection for the American Revolution since my great-uncle was second in command to George Washington in the Revolutionary War. His name was General Israel Putnam, and you might have heard of something he said at Bunker Hill. He said, you know how to aim, boys, but don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes. So I come in his memory, dressed as Thomas Jefferson or any founder you might choose. You know, the most important truth that I've learned in my lifetime of studying American history is that just as there are physical laws that govern the physical universe, there are social laws also that preserve the family and govern social order. These laws cannot be violated without devastating consequences to the family or a nation. Thomas Jefferson referred to these laws in the Declaration of Independence as the laws of nature and nature's God. The statutes that our legislators pass must cooperate with these laws if those principles, that legislation is going to be successful. If they're abandoned, these eternal principles must be restored for peace and prosperity to extend to the whole people. This is how George Washington said it. He said, "The propitious smiles of heaven can never be expected on a nation that disregards the eternal rules of order and right which heaven itself has ordained." Now, most of what you're hearing from the speakers today, you already know in your hearts. There's a simple awareness that we cannot violate these common sense financial practices that the speakers have been talking about. We can't expect any different outcome if we violate these rules than if you were to violate the law of gravity, or if you were to plant corn and think that beans would come up. These are laws of nature. You may have heard of some sayings that were attributed to Abraham Lincoln. He didn't actually say them, but he gets the credit for it. He said, "You cannot bring about prosperity by discouraging thrift. You cannot strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. You cannot help the poor by robbing the rich. You cannot lift the wage earner by pulling down the wage payer. You cannot avoid financial disaster by spending more than you take in. You cannot establish security on borrowed money. You cannot help men permanently by doing for people what they will not do for themselves." But there are not just financial laws and the laws of nature. There are other laws of nature as well, and I want to mention just a few of them briefly. The first one that we can't forget is that mankind's inalienable rights do not come from the government, but they come from our Creator. The government does not grant these rights, and they cannot take them away. Thomas Jefferson said, "Can the liberties of a nation be thought secure when we have removed their only firm basis, a conviction in the minds of the people that these liberties are the gift of God? Indeed, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just, and His justice cannot sleep forever." A second crucial principle is that life and liberty are secure only if the right to property is secure. John Adams said it this way. He said, "The moment the idea is admitted into society that property is not as sacred as the laws of God, and that there is not a force of law and public justice to protect it, tyranny and anarchy commence. Property must be secure or liberty cannot exist. Friends, we've forsaken the right to private property in this country. We've delegated to the government the ability to go to one of our neighbors and give to another. These are things like what Mark was talking about earlier when he said we can't give the government rights to do things we can't do ourselves. If we don't get the right to property back, then the great American experiment is over, in my opinion. Now, a third principle is that the proper role of government is to ensure equal opportunities, not provide equal outcomes. Listen to Samuel Adams. He said the utopian scheme of leveling. That was an old-fashioned word for redistribution of the wealth. He said the utopian scheme of leveling in a community of goods, by which he meant central ownership, means of production and distribution. He said these are arbitrary, despotic, and in our government unconstitutional. Equal opportunity means that our laws are applied equally to all people. As the fee agent at the Carthage License Office, I can tell you that when someone has to bring his birth certificate to get a driver's license in Missouri, but a candidate for president does not have to show his birth certificate to stand for election, our laws become grossly unjust. Now, I don't say that to disparage Barack Obama. I respect his office, and I think he might be a fine man. I'm just not sure. But what I'm asking for is equal justice under law. If you have to show your birth certificate to get a driver's license, he ought to have to show his birth certificate to stand for election.